high-rise buildings covered in dangerous cladding under the responsibility of the government will be fixed by the year 2029.
That's according to Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner, who will say today that decisive action is being taken to accelerate work to make thousands of homes safe and to punish private freeholders who don't act fast. 7 years on from the Grenfell tragedy. And Building Safety Minister Alex Norris joins us now. Mr Norris, there will be, I think, a lot of our viewers who will both be shocked to know that 7 years on from Grenfell, this issue is still not sorted, but also to learn that it's going to take at least 5 more years.
Morning, Ed. Thanks for having me. I think viewers would be shocked, as you say, that how little progress has been made over the last 7 years. I think they also would be shocked that on the trajectory we've inherited, this would be resolved in the 2040s. They'd also be shocked that we actually have inherited a situation where we can't tell viewers how many buildings will need remediation, with as many as 4,000 to 7,000 still to be identified. So all of those things aren't good enough, and that's why we're announcing the plan to Parliament that we are later to rapidly accelerate that and bring those deadlines forward to the end of this decade.
Can I just ask, if you bought your flat in good faith and then you find out there is this cladding, you are paying probably much bigger insurance costs. You can't sell your flat because the cladding is still there. Does the announcement guarantee that by 2019, whoever built that flat originally, the developer, will have changed the cladding? Or are there going to be people in 2029 who are still in that same situation and it's still not resolved?
It guarantees that if you are in an 18-metre plus building, by 2029, if they're in a government scheme, they will have been remediated. For 11 to 18 metres, this big group of buildings that to some degree haven't, well, significant degree haven't been identified, the work will either be done, it'll be on site, or we will be taking those building owners who aren't doing their responsibilities properly, we will be taking them to court. You know, as I say, that is a rapid bringing forward of the current status quo where we'd be in that situation, not next decade, but the one after.
But I was asking about somebody who has bought a flat, maybe in over that 18-metre limit, but it's a private block of flat. It's not a government-owned or managed or originally built building. In that situation, if they've not had a resolution, are you saying the government in 2029 will legally be challenging the people who originally built that building, or could they be stuck in that situation with it not resolved?
No, with 18 metres plus, it's not just government buildings. It's ones in one of the schemes, either the Legacy Building Safety Fund or the Cladding Safety Scheme. So all of those that have been entered into will have been resolved at that stage in the case that you're talking about.
Resolved doesn't mean resolved. Resolved means you might still be trying to pursue the developer?
Ed, no, that's not the commitment we're making today. In the case of 18-metre plus, they will have been remediated by 2029.
Right.
Because part of what we're announcing today involves the making sure we're making best use of our schemes, but also an agreement with the nation's major developers to double the pace of their remediation. So actually, it will end up being sooner than 2029. So no, that isn't at all what it is.
So it's not legal fights into the 2030s?
The case where legal fights could come into it involve 11 to 18-metre buildings where, at the moment, owners haven't identified them, let us know that they're here, haven't had the inspections to say whether their cladding is dangerous. That could take longer. But again, we're not saying by then in 2029 we take action. We will take action at the soonest possible moment once that building's identified or once that building owner hasn't entered into the scheme. Because at the end of the day, Ed, there is money available to address cladding, risk to life cladding. If that building owner listening or watching today simply enters into that scheme, those costs will be met. There's no excuse at all. So, no, this isn't a in 2029 we will. This is a today we will, and by 2029 we will have resolved. So, that is the degree of intent that we're speaking with when we announce our plans later.
Minister, just want to broaden out our discussion to the Prime Minister saying that this week's going to see a new phase of government. There's going to be a plan for change for Britain, and there are going to be measurable milestones. Is this because you've faced so much trouble with farmers, in particular with business over the tax rises, and with pensioners over the winter fuel allowance?
No, not at all.
You acknowledge you've experienced those problems?
No. I mean, I would acknowledge that we were left
Have you not watched the news since you've been in government?
I would acknowledge that we've inherited an exceptionally difficult situation, particularly with the nation's finances, and that's led to difficult decisions. And of course, with those difficult decisions, there are people who won't be happy with them.
Yeah.
What we're doing this week, we won the election in July. We were in opposition, pledging change. We made commitments around what those driving missions would be. And then it is right, I think, to return, having had time in government to prepare our plans, to go back to the public and say, this is what that change will look like, when those measurable milestones will be, so that the public can make a judgment as to whether we've delivered or not.
OK. Let's talk about one of the difficult decisions you had to make. You took the winter fuel allowance away from 10 million pensioners. You voted that through, didn't you, individually?
I did.
Yeah. That was a very difficult decision, particularly as it affects some pensioners whose income might be just £12,000, £13,000 a year, because, of course, the threshold is if you get pension credit. 10 million pensioners losing out. Do you still claim support for your energy bills?
Well, to answer that in two parts. First of all, those pensioners, as a result of the triple lock in recent years, have seen significant increases in their income. The pensioners who need pension credit will get that. And we, as I talk to my constituents and you will talk to viewers, people need to sign up for that and go through that process. If they fall just over that cliff edge, as you mentioned, there's support through the Household Support Fund to smooth that off. So, we're very clear that the support will be there for pensioners who need it this winter.
Yeah, not for the whole of the 10 million, and still on a very low income. The second part of my question, of course, you're going to answer was, do you still claim support for your energy costs?
I pay my bills for my energy costs at home. And like anybody else who works away, my employer meets the costs of working and living away from home. That's an independently set process.
OK, but that's public money.
Indeed, and it's a matter of public record. But like anybody, again, people watching perhaps in wherever they're staying as they're working away from home this week, we're in the same situations as they would be.
But as an MP, you earn, am I right, £91,000 plus your ministerial salary of around 30,000.
Yes,
Wouldn't the better difficult decision be to take away heating allowance from MPs who can afford to pay it than from pensioners on £12,000, £13,000 a year?
Well, I think that the way in which employment's treated should be consistent, irrespective of the job that you do. And as I say, it would be routine, as it would be for yourself, as it would be for me, for those costs to be met.
Shouldn't public money be spent on those who can least afford it rather than those who can most afford it?
Well, indeed, and that I think you will have seen was a real feature of our budget. If you look at who the budget has impacted the most and who's had the best impact from the budget has been those people with the least who have benefited from it. It was a thoroughly Labour budget in that regard. So I completely agree with that, and I would completely say that that's what we've done.
Do you not have any qualms when you say it was a difficult decision to take up to £300 away from pensioners on low incomes when you are a highly paid MP and minister who still claims public money for your energy bills?
Well, I believe that the decision we took was the right one. We protected the poorest pensioners. We know that for those who wouldn't be eligible, they could claim into the Household Support Fund.
OK,
for those
so you don't have any qualms about that?
Well, similarly, because the alternative is that you're basically saying that perhaps in the future, because it's not just bill costs, it's also residential costs, isn't it? That eventually you either have to live in London already, or you couldn't be a member of Parliament, or you have to have independently wealthy. All I ask is that we're treated the same as the rest of the population. I think that's reasonable. And as I say, it's all independently set anyway. So frankly, I don't have agency in it.
All right. Alex Norris, thanks very much indeed for talking to us this morning.